Okay, welcome to 8 Weeks of Wellness 2019. I'm Dr. Michael Dornbush from Pure Wellness in Washougal, and I'm teaming up with the Washougal School District to put forth a program that'll help the staff and hopefully beyond be healthier. And so this is the time of year that everybody starts to get sick, starts to gain weight because of the holidays, and we're going to try and prevent that from happening. So this whole process is going to be, a lot of this stuff is going to be done at home. We're going to give you the tools to be healthier. Yeah, so I'm going to provide all the stuff that you need. All the learning materials are going to be provided. You don't have to take notes unless you want to. But we want to just make this as simple as possible for everybody. So, but our main goals are to get back to our ideal weight, optimize your health potential as much as we can so you can experience all that life has to offer without any limitations that you may already have. So we're going to teach you how to do that. So, all right, so let's get started. So obviously this is part one. So today we're going to be covering a lot about just overview of health and disease, and just the whole premise of what is health and what is wellness, what does it look like, where we're at with our whole health paradigm, and trying to make some changes to that to live a healthier life. I guess I should probably introduce myself as well. So I'm a chiropractor. I'm also currently finishing up my fellowship in functional medicine, which is more of a natural approach to medicine. I'm also co-owner of Washougal Family Medicine. I'm a certified in whiplash-related motor vehicle injuries. I'm a TMJ dysfunction specialist. I'm also husband to my lovely wife, Michelle, and father to two sons, Owen and Austin. That's who I am, and I always strive to learn more, provide the most well-rounded care for our patients, and if you are a patient, you'll recognize and understand what I'm talking about. That's what I'm about. So, all right. So, if we get right into this, I always like to really start this process by asking patients or anybody who attends these workshops, what is health and how do we create it? And so the most common thing that I hear from patients or from anybody is when they talk about health is really, I feel good, there's an absence of pain or symptoms, which, the assumption is there must be an absence of disease. So is that different than an optimal functioning body? Can you feel no pain, no symptoms, and be a total wreck? And so the best example of that is, what kills us the most in terms of chronic illness are things that we don't really feel initially. So what I'm talking about is heart disease, still the number one killer in our country, and probably around the world, and then number two is cancer. So what is the first symptom of heart disease? So if you ponder that, if everybody knows somebody who's had heart disease, or more than 50% of the time, the first symptom is a heart attack. And so was that person healthy or unhealthy in the months, days, weeks leading up to that heart attack? No, they were unhealthy. They just didn't know they had a ticking time bomb going off in their chest because they didn't feel any issues, any pain. So cancer can be even worse. So you don't know what's going on until either do imaging or do something proactively. And oftentimes you feel no symptoms and you're told that you have something. So we need to start taking things into our own hands and not rely on just the physical symptom to determine what our level of health is. So moving on, it kind of begs the question too, are we healthier today than our ancestors were 20, 50, 100 years ago, or even 1,000 years ago? So, I mean, if you think about the current health paradigm is based on acute illness, really infection, where we take a medication, we take a pill that provides our health, gets rid of the infection, have you, or it's that you take a pill, you feel better. And so that doesn't work very well though with chronic illness, because chronic illness is a slow degradation over time of your health. And so we have to be more proactive to help prevent this sort of stuff. So the easiest example of that is arthritis. So osteoarthritis is basically a slow degeneration of your joints over time based on the stress pattern that you have on that joint. So if your posture is not so great, over time your body remodels itself to accommodate that stress from gravity. And so that's not great. And so if you can early on recognize those issues and take the appropriate action, you're less likely to have those wear and tear patterns. So has anybody ever had an alignment in their car? Yeah, most people have, right? Because you want your tires to last as long as possible. Well, it's the same thing with your spine, same thing with any weight-bearing joint. If your alignment is off, those certain parts of your body are going to wear out faster because there's more stress on them. And that's where it's really, really important to pay attention to the stress on your body. So, and that's where chronic illness comes in. It's a slow degradation of your health. But if you have a better lifestyle, make better lifestyle choices, there's a slower process at hand that will allow you to live a healthier life for longer. So we do a great job of disease prevention. Antibiotics, antiviral stuff. We do a really good job with that. Acute illness, trauma centers, we do a really good job of that. It's chronic illness where there's a problem. And we're trying to fit in the acute illness model, disease prevention or infection model, into our chronic illness model. It doesn't work. There's no pill, there's no one thing that we can do to eradicate the results of a chronic illness. And that's where prevention becomes key. So if we don't get a grasp on how a chronic illness is affecting things, then it's always going to be an issue. And so we're starting to see this slow degradation of our overall health, and we need to make a change. So it kind of begs the question too, in terms of our life expectancy, this will be the first generation really that we are not living longer than the previous generation. So we're kind of at that tipping point. Our environment is way more toxic. The food that we eat is less nutrient based. So we really have to pay attention to what's happening in your own life, in your own body, and take action with it. And that's where this whole functional medicine approach comes into play. Giving people the tools that they need to reduce the toxins in their body, to improve the nutrients, to get the right nutrients, and to pay attention to the signs that are early on in progressive chronic illness to help mitigate those changes so they don't get worse. And I think that's really the future of healthcare. And it's not rocket science, right? Like everybody knows and has a perception of what we need to do to be healthy, but because of different things in our general life, stress, we typically move in the wrong direction. So what's really happening though is we have a set of genes in terms of what we have to be healthy. Certain people actually have genes though that preclude them to certain illnesses, and now because of the whole genetic mapping that's been done over the last 20 years, you can actually go and have a genetic test done, 23andMe, and there's other ones that are out there that are you can get a health profile to see what particular things in your environment can steer you towards chronic illness. There's the breast cancer gene, there's this blood pressure gene. So there's also these sorts of genes that if you know what things you need to avoid, like move towards or move away from, your chance of being healthy is much greater. And so I really recommend having that test done to see what your profile looks like and see what your risk is. Then the other component is obviously your lifestyle choices. So if you can base your lifestyle choices on a certain genetic information and based on what your own genome contains, your possibility of increased longevity is enormous. And so the goal of these workshops is to focus on your lifestyle choices and give you the information that you need to get back to a normal weight if you're not there, continue to improve your nutrient intake, to avoid those toxins, and to better deal with stress, because it's stress that reduces our chances of being healthy. Okay, but the one thing about it, the next slide talks about procrastination. It really is the thief of your health, because we tend to procrastinate on things that are new to us. It's like, I'll get to it next time. I'll do it another day. Well, it's a list of possibilities towards, if we don't procrastinate and we take action sooner, that list of possibilities of being healthy is really enormous, and it's quite broad. And that's what the whole wellness approach is based on. In terms of the sick care approach, it's sort of like, well, let's take wait and see what happens. I'll deal with that once I'm sick. Once I feel symptoms, I'll take better care of myself when I have an issue. Well, oftentimes that's too late. And so we want to try and get ahead of this and stay ahead of this as much as we can. So, and that's the emphasis on the lifestyle approach is prevention rather than treating symptoms. You can't be reactive all the time. You need to be more proactive. So the time to act is now. We need to get out there and be more aware of this and turn this in more action rather than just kind of sitting on the sidelines. So the thing that degrades our health, what degrades our health the most? So typically, it's pretty simple, right? So we're not doing enough of the good things to promote our health, and we do way too much of the things that degrade our health. So there's a balance. So if you're, for instance, you don't move very much, you eat a ton of sugar, a lot of processed foods, our health tends to be not as great as it should be. Instead of exercising every day, drinking enough water, eating a nutrient-dense diet, getting enough sleep, that promotes health. So the more days that you do things that promote health, you get to be healthier. The more days you do things that don't promote health and move you away from it, you're not going to be as healthy. And really, based on your specific genome and genetics, if you're doing things that sometimes you think are healthy, but your genes say otherwise, you can still be moving away from health. So it can be that simple. And so, I can't emphasize enough, I think it's really important for us all to get that genetic test done. All right, so there's three main common stressors to the human body: physical, chemical, and emotional. And so physical, basically, injuries, posture, those sorts of things, that's a huge physical stress. So ergonomics, we see a lot of people now we don't move very as much because we sit in the front of a computer a lot, and we don't take enough breaks. And over time, what happens? Our posture starts to suffer. Your spine gets stiff. Your joints get stiff. It causes arthritis. And so that's obviously more obvious. Or obviously, grew up playing football or soccer. You have injuries to your body. Your body's never really the same after those injuries. And so you just have to pay attention to that. Chemical stressors, there's a few different kinds of chemical stressors. The biggest one is in our food. So the way we eat is probably the single most important chemical stress in the body. The water we drink, but also the air that we breathe, those are all chemical stressors. So if we're eating a ton of processed foods, the process of increased food storage, high in sodium, sugars, to make the shelf life longer, those aren't as nutrient dense as raw fruits and vegetables, good quality meat, all those sort of things play a role in what's your chemical load on your body. And the other one that's often overlooked is emotional stress. So emotional stressors, working too much, not having enough free time, not having enough fun, not spending enough time with your friends and family, all these things put a strain on you emotionally. And emotional stress will play the biggest role on physical stress and chemical stress. So if you're emotionally stressed, you're not going to choose very good healthy foods because your body's looking for not nutrient dense food, but energy dense foods. So for instance, when you're emotionally stressed, you're reaching more for sugars, more for sometimes alcohol, which contains sugar, things like that, simple carbohydrates, because you need to feel that fuel that fight or flight response. And so same thing with when you're emotionally stressed, people tend not to want to exercise. They want to just sort of curl up and do nothing. And so it's a huge component to our health. And so we're going to be talking about all three of these things in detail in this program to help give you guys the tools to help, live longer. So, all right, so we went over these physical stress. So sitting, lifting, accidents, trauma, posture, slip and falls, repetitive movements, ergonomics. So subluxation is the last one. So this, as a chiropractor, this is what I see a lot of. And so basically subluxation is when your spine, I'm not sure if any of you guys have ever had back pain or neck pain before, but it's pretty immobilizing. And so what happens is subluxation is basically all of a sudden your joints stop moving properly and they get misaligned. And that can put a huge physical stress on everything around it. It affects the nerves, it affects the muscles, affects the ligaments. And so over time, they can really start to degrade the joints around it and can lead to arthritis. And so I wanted to throw that in there to kind of explain how that process works. And then car accidents, I specialize in that as well. And one of the things that we see is, when people have whiplash, people feel like, well, it'll take a couple weeks to heal. But in actual fact, it can take months and years to fully recover from whiplash because there's so many tissues that are damaged, even though sometimes you don't feel very, very sore. And so it's one of those things that we have to just pay close attention to, making sure that things are totally better before we release people from their care. So now chemical stress, this is the one that people probably have the most interest in because it's their diet and nutrition that is the main thing we're looking at with chemical stress. So the amount of sugar that we eat is huge because that can cause all sorts of things. Processed foods, alcohol. The other thing too is genetically modified foods. Those are basically engineered foods with toxins put in them to make them more, or actually less susceptible to bugs and pesticides. So it's sort of like, and also allows them to be sprayed with pesticides and herbicides more often because they feel like they're a hardier food, but they're actually quite toxic to our guts. And so if I can't emphasize this anymore, then stay away from genetically modified foods because they're not food. Air pollution obviously is a big source of chemical stress. Food additives, caffeine in large amounts, like anything, like some of these foods, stimulants, chemicals, all these sort of things can really be hard on our body. Your body has a load that it can tolerate a certain amount of chemicals and toxins in our body, but when you go beyond that, that's when things become a real issue. And the last thing I put on this slide is drugs. So pharmaceutical drugs are chemicals. They're usually synthetic, and they can be quite toxic to any part of the body that is detoxifying. So like the liver, kidneys, sometimes your gut. So we're trying to make it so you guys and our community as a whole needs to be on less medications. So if we make the better lifestyle choices, our need for drugs goes way down. The other one is like emotional stress. So and this is sort of like this foo-foo type of stress because particularly guys, like we're not so in touch with our feelings and our emotions, and we tend to sort of negate things. But we can internalize things too, and that can come out in different ways. So, but for instance, like poor self-talk. Self-talk is basically that conversation you're having in your head with yourself. And so if you mess up, we can be quite hard on ourselves. In fact, most times, if we if our friends talked to us the way we talk to ourselves, we wouldn't be friends with those people. And so it's trying to be more encouraging to ourselves, in creating a more positive internal dialogue, rather than constantly just dwelling on the negative and beating ourselves up all the time. Stressful jobs, fear, anxiety of everything and anything can paralyze us, but it increases that stress response in our body. Obviously, death to loved ones, no free time, working too much with no vacations, negative outlook, family conflict, all of these sort of things play a role in emotional stress on our bodies. And so how does this create disease? Well, it triggers that one response in your body called the adaptive stress response, or fight or flight. This is totally normal physiology, meant to be a short-term solution to getting out of a stressful, sticky situation. The problem, though, is if you're constantly in that stressful environment, that it creates chronic illness, and it changes actually how your genes are expressed in the long term. So for instance, if you're being chased by a bear, which, I grew up in Canada, so bears are, home for me. So signs of stress response, you want certain things to happen if you're being chased by a bear. Heart rate's gonna go up because it's sort of like go time, right? You're either gonna try and fight this 300-400 pound animal, or you're gonna try and run from it. So blood pressure and heart rate are gonna go up, cholesterol's gonna go up, clotting factors will go up, because if you get cut by the bear, you want your blood to stop squirting out of your arm as quickly as possible. Blood sugars go up because you need increased energies, as do lipid levels, and then sensitivity sensory organs, so you're really quite aware of what's happening to your body. But certain things will also decrease, which is immune function, your short-term memory, which is obviously your ability to concentrate. Certain hormones will decrease, and as does serotonin. It's go time. We don't want things to chill out. We want to be amped up. So, but if you can look at this, so in a chronic state, if you're always in this sort of environment, your blood pressure goes up and it stays up. Your heart rate goes up, it stays up. Cholesterol goes up and it stays up. All these sort of things will lead to chronic illness. Increased blood sugars causes diabetes. Increased blood pressure, heart rate, cholesterol, clotting factors, that leads to heart disease. So increased sensitivity to sensory organs, that's where sometimes you get these fibromyalgia type symptoms. So your nervous system stays in a heightened state of awareness, and over time it just can't downregulate itself, and you start having these chronic states of disease. Same thing with, as these things are decreased, your immune function gets decreased. Well, there's cancer, there's getting sick more often, can turn into autoimmune stuff. Short-term memory, obviously that's an issue. So serotonin, as serotonin neurotransmitter is depressed, it leads to depression. So we don't want this to be in a chronic state. This cannot go on forever. Your body you can't cope with it. So how do we fix this? Well, we add more of what our body needs to be healthy and reduce or eliminate the stress on the body as much as we can. And so if you know the 3 types of stress, and you kind of start to chart what are the things that stress you out the most, and you start working on them one by one, you're going to improve your health, no matter where you are and how far along the process you are. It can be that simple. So if you guys have any questions along the way, just let me know. Everybody's going to have my email. But the more we focus on our health, the more you're going to be healthy. So whatever that looks like, no matter how much you weigh, how much you exercise, how much you move, how stressed you are, you can fix it. It just takes one day at a time. All right, so the recipe for health is this. Healthy nutrition. Nutrition is a big, big thing. There's a lot of nutrients in our diets these days that are very addictive. And so we have to sometimes break those addictions to get over this stuff. So that's number one, eating healthy. Most weight loss programs are not done at the gym, they're done in your kitchen. That's the most important thing you need to remember about this is before we start to move, we need to actually fix your nutrition. But then we need to get you moving to improve your metabolism, improve your nervous system, improve your joint health, muscle strength, just start burning calories like you normally should. Next is fixing your mental state, make it more positive rather than negative. Surrounding yourself with positive people, being more social, all those sort of things help immensely. But also identifying, what your current mental state is very important as well. It's also important to have, increased strength and a strong frame and coordinating that information within the body by having a healthy functioning nervous system. Nervous system coordinates every cell in your body to do something. And so, if people want to come in and have me check their nervous system, please do. But it's one of those things that the nerves control everything. So, the other thing too is most people neglect their sleep. And so adequate sleep is so important for body repair. So if you're only getting a few hours of sleep, you're not really going into that repair phase. And so the phase of breaking your body down is way more than the phase of breaking or repairing the body. And so things degenerate. So for adults, it's usually 7 to 8 hours of sleep is the most appropriate time. Getting less than that, it's not great. You're gonna continue to decay your body. So sleep apnea is definitely a major issue that needs to be rectified. Okay, so here's some important things on when it comes to health. So it's good, just some good questions to ask yourself in terms of like mental health. What kind of priority are these things to you? Like in terms of your social environment, your career and where you stand with your career, your mental state. What is your spirit like? What's your family life like? How much time do you spend on leisure, and also spending time with family and like family vacations and things like that. But just kind of grading yourself on these sort of things can really help improve your mental state. Okay, so then this next slide. So so what we're trying to talk about here is, and unfortunately I see this all too often, and it's sort of like it's this sick paradigm we're in. We oftentimes neglect our health until we lose it or we have a perceived problem, which that's when we finally start to do something about it. At that point it's like, I'll do anything to get my health back. I just let myself go. But unfortunately, the sad truth of it is it's sometimes too late to fully regain your health. And so that's why the emphasis has to be on prevention. There's no cure for a lot of these things because, is a hip replacement a cure for a degenerative joint or degenerative hip? Not really a cure. It helps relieve the symptoms and it repairs as best as possible that hip joint, but it's not really it's not going to cure. It's not going to bring that hip back to its pristine state. So same thing with a stent in a blood vessel. It's helped keeping it open, but the blood vessel is still damaged beyond repair. We're having to put something artificially in that blood vessel, and now you're on like a blood thinner to make sure there's no clotting that's going to happen because of that stent. So there's all sorts of things that we think that that fixes that problem. It's like, well, not really. It's just sort of like the best solution in a bad thing. So don't neglect our health. Don't let it wait till it's so far gone you can't regain your health, if possible. So best time to focus on your health is while you're still healthy. Hopefully there's no signs of illness, but if there's signs of an illness, pay attention to those early signs. Super, super important. All right, so that's pretty much all I had to say for this introductory part of this workshop. So let me know if you have any questions. In terms of homework, the biggest thing is just starting to focus on like what are the most common stressors that you have in your environment. Nutritional stress, mental stress, physical stress, and kind of give yourself a grade and how we need to improve on that. And in each workshop, we're going to be moving towards these things as well. So, so from So the next week we'll be talking about nutrition and coming up with a new model of how to eat and why certain foods are better than others. And then we're going to talk a little bit about hormones, because if your hormones are out of balance, it'll affect how those nutrients are utilized. And so each time when we talk, we'll be talking about some different testing you can do from your primary care provider, just to kind of measure things and see where you stand. There's some simple basic tests that we can rely on, whether they're taken by having a blood test or sometimes saliva test. There's different ways of measuring this stuff. And then week 4, we want to talk about sugar and its impact on your health. Week 5, we're going to talk about inflammation, because inflammation can drive us really away from health in many different ways. And then week 6 is the time we're going to start talking about movement and exercise and kind of doing things the right way, based on what our body needs, and not just because we think we want to do something. Week 7 is mental stress reduction. And then week 8, we're going to kind of review things again and kind of go through our progress. And then that'll be pretty much take care of these first 8 weeks of this program. And then, like I said, we'll be doing another 8-week session where we'll play in the new year to really focus on like individual conditions, because I get a lot of questions about, well, how do I treat this? What do I do for that? What kind of nutrients do I need to prevent arthritis, or so we'll be talking more of that in detail. But I want to just let everybody get the basics and realize, how does my health work? How do I improve it? What do I need to stay away from, and so forth. So, all right. Well, hopefully everybody found this informative, and we look forward to chatting with you on subsequent workshops. But like I said, email me any questions, and then I think what we'll do is we'll probably have these slides done in a PDF format for you, so you can just download those, make it a little bit easier for you. So, all right. Until next time, have a great day.